Well, everybody, we're back 2 weeks in a row here with The Last of Us, not part 2. Let's not get ahead of ourselves now. Don't you just know... Hold on, we're back with Last of Us Episode 2. Shut the fuck up, we're moving on to something important. Don't you just know they're going to change part 2 in some ways, just to appease these fucking idiots? And I refuse to believe Mr. Druckmann, that's how we refer to him as, has anything to do with it. Some fucking HBO executive's going to get in his ear and... You really can't change it. Like, what are you going to change? Like, Joel just doesn't die, Lamau? This is spoilers for everything. I think we established this last week. You better not be watching this fucking show or this fucking stream if you don't know what the fuck is going on here. Because we're talking about test stuff, etc. Test is one of the big dot points that I forgot to write down. Remind me of that, chat. Are you saying hi to YouTube? They definitely won't compromise on anything big. I hope so. Hey to the 7 YouTube plebs. I think there's 7 Twitch plebs right now. No, there's only 5. Okay, let's not get ahead of myself. Let's not let me get a big head. But as I'm doing all this, I'm going to YouTube to check. Because last week's didn't do that well in the viewership department. House of the Dragon, we got unbelievable viewership. 200 people an episode, my goodness. Last of Us still on 90 views, you know. You win some, you lose some, chat. I know what the problem is. We need to reinvigorate interest by making new videos on the main channel. This is our plan to fix everything, the plan that's never going to happen. But fuck you, Heath, is the point of that sentence. Or that paragraph, or that tangent, one of the above. Episode 2, let's talk about it. Episode 1 was pretty great. Episode 2 was pretty better, I think. I think I do like it better, but we'll get into why in a second. Surely they wait like 5 years to cover part 2 because the actress looks way too young to be doing some of those part 2 scenes. I just dress her differently. She's 19. I still can't believe she's only 2 years younger than me. She does look 13 now. I cannot believe that she was 2 years younger than me when she was filming those Game of Thrones scenes. She looked like 7 back then. I was like 17. But anyway, if they look young and they get to play kids in the movies, that's how you make the real money in Hollywood. I'm not sure any amount of years will make her look like an adult. I don't know, just put different clothes on her and makeup or something. I hear that works. But I assume she's kissing at least. Very different, though, from what we're doing in part 2. I'm sure she's kissing in this, season. The normies were speculating about this, because, of course, I watched my normies reaction, as you do, as is part of the ritual every time you watch an episode. And they were actually speculating on whether or not we would cover the whole first game in this season. And my initial answer was, before the show even came out, was like, of course, right? I think we still will. What did the trailer show? The trailer showed them getting to Jackson with Tommy. That's over halfway through the game. We're definitely doing the whole fucking thing. Unless they introduce the Tommy thing. Snow is in the trailer. That's right. David is in the trailer too. So we're definitely doing all that stuff. I was going to say initially that what if they put the Tommy thing in the first episode to try and bookend the season by them getting to Tommy. But no. We're definitely doing the whole first thing. Maybe they'll give it a more definitive ending. Maybe Joel fails to save her and she makes the vaccine. That'd be crazy. Then we can't even do part 2. Abby has nothing to be mad about. Her dad's still alive. I bet the doctor won't be black this time, unless they make Abby black. Now that is forward thinking. Both in a progressive sense and in I'm just so smart I'm seeing it coming. Holy shit, she's definitely going to be in that last episode, right? It's not even going to be a post... No, it is going to be a post... They're going to show the scene of her finding her dad's body. That's going to be the post-credit scene. And everybody will be mad about it because it'll confirm that Abby's going to be next season. I guess that spoils everything at the beginning of the next game, though. Because so much of the interesting thing is, like, you sort of know that, oh, this group, they're looking for somebody. It has to be Joel. It has to be Joel. And it sort of plays with you in the beginning sequence of the part 2. Which kind of removes all that tension and the who the fuck are these guys tension. Or not even tension, but interest from the beginning. They'll change it. We're changing everything out here. Way to speculate and rather than talk about what actually had happened in the episode at the beginning of this video. I was wondering if the doctor at the start ended up being a Firefly or something. But no, it was just 10 minutes of filler instead. That shit was all great. That scene with him, great. The joke about the one dumb kid and the one smart kid, great. Best scene in the first episode. So the episode was great. Most of it was just them dicking around, which is my favorite part, especially part 1. And I think they nailed all the interactivity between Ellie and Joel and all this stuff. I do think there are less layers to this Ellie. I still like her, and I still think she's probably my favorite part of the show. But in my head, I went through this monologue, and it was so smart and so good, but I'm struggling to remember it now. She nails the sassiness very well. I don't think she nails like the kid-like wonder. And the one scene where they tried to incorporate that into her character in this episode, where she's ringing the door, not the doorbell, the fucking bell, the counter bell. I don't know what it's called. What do you call that thing? Just a bell? It's definitely not a doorbell. But anyway, she's ringing it, being a prick, and then she does a weird act-out thing, and it's really weird and awkward and cringe even. And it felt like they were trying to do the Ellie thing. And I didn't think it was cringe, like it was a bad scene. I feel like there's a lot more of that with Ellie. And it feels more pure, I guess, in the game compared to this Ellie. I think that's one of the bigger differences specific to Ellie. Now, we can talk about Tess, because I feel like her character was completely different. And I think to the show's detriment, I feel like it's a definitive like game Tess is way better. But we can talk about all that as we progress. Anyway, I saw Miller was saying something. I was wondering, the doctor. Oh, we're talking about the doctor from this one. At the start of this episode, true, the Jakara flashback did feel odd. I thought it was the best part of the episode. I nearly tweeted after I watched it. I was like, all the flashbacks are the best. The flashbacks are the best part of the show. But then I thought that would sound like I was being cunty. Like, it would be me talking about the Chainsaw Man anime and saying, like, the endings are the best part of this show. But yeah, I thought it was fucking sick. It was the best. And I like the talk show in the beginning of the first episode. I thought, that was sick. It is interesting that they are actively changing a lot of the lore. I wonder if this will... Because what I kind of don't want to happen is for this to migrate over into the third game if it ever happens. Or even into the multiplayer game. Now, it probably will. This is like I feel like this would be something Nate would be furious about. That's the feeling I get from this. And that's what I think about when I think about this. Just to throw Nate in there somehow. We're talking about best guy ever, chat. Follow along. But like, I don't think the flower stuff in whatever part of Indonesia, Jakarta, I don't know. I'm not going to try and say it. I can't learn words on stream. It's just impossible. I still don't know how to say that one name from Chainsaw Man. But if I thought about it, and if I was off stream, I could probably do it. Anyway, I thought that shit was sick. Then she told him to bomb him. It was great. The normies didn't include it in their reaction, and the comments were pissed because it was the best scene in the episode. They concurred. Look at Elite RE. What a giga chad. Saying best part of the episode. Yeah, hotel joke was kind of cringe. Felt lifted directly from later in the game, right? I think there is an optional interaction. I think Ashley Johnson does pull that stuff off better than Bella Ramsey, though. Which is interesting, because Ashley Johnson was like 35 or whatever when she was doing that shit. I don't think she's that old even now. I do remember like looking her up like 10 years ago and being shocked at how old Ashley Johnson was. Ashley Johnson. How old? She's 39. She is pretty old. Anyway, hopefully her feelings aren't hurt when she inevitably watches this review here. Their characters haven't shown up yet. It will be very interesting. I feel like they have to change their voices or something. Because if you didn't know, Ashley Johnson and Troy Baker are going to show up in the show at some point. Now, Troy Baker's real voice isn't Joel. Ashley Johnson's real voice kind of is Ellie. So that'll be interesting. The fakeness of Joel's voice only ever really comes out when he tries to sing. Like, his part of Wayfaring Stranger is not the best. I still like it. It has charm to it. But it's very clear, like, putting on a voice, then trying to sing it, like, in key or whatever that means. Sing good in it is very interesting. It was good at the end when the professor wanted to be with her family. I actually thought that was the only bad part of it. Something about that didn't feel the best to me. I really like the tension at the beginning where it's like, who are they going for? And they showed the shot of like the one group of blokes like looking over at the officers as they came in. And I thought that was a good misdirect because I'm like, so what are these blokes? How are they important? It's actually the woman in the back. It felt very not Last of Us, which I liked. I don't know. It was very interesting. The movings, all the different lore stuff is interesting because like the moving spores and shit, and especially like the like tripwire stuff that they introduced about, oh, you step on this over there and now they all know where you are, and just like the horde like lying down and them bringing up that they're like all connected or something. All this like lore stuff is interesting. Again, I like prefer the game stuff. But yeah, I kind of hope they keep them separate. I think to bring that point full circle. We were talking about that before. But I did really like the beginning scene of the episode. I thought the second they'd have to go to Indonesia in the third game, but it turned out it wasn't the origin of the zombies like I first thought. I feel like the implication might have still been that it was. It just like somebody bit her and we don't know where that came from. But you really can't do like an origin of zombie. I don't know. It doesn't make... Zombies are stupid. How do we even figure out it spreads like that? Like initially if you say, well, it spread through the flour, oh, that would make sense. But that's not how it spreads. It spreads by getting bitten. So I don't know. I saw someone on TikTok saying that Rick Grimes is going to fight Joel in episode 4. Well, isn't that epic? Is Jakarta not in Indonesia? I thought it was. I think. I'll look it up in a second. It's like Stranger Things when they can't step on the vines or they'll alert Vensenya. I don't know what the fuck a Stranger Things is. Just kidding. I know what it is. Jakarta is the capital of Indonesia, I just saw. Yeah. I could tell because Indonesia is interesting because it's like an Asian country, but it's like majority Muslim, which is interesting. So you could see from like the scarves and stuff because it's like an imported religion. I guess all religion's imported. But yeah, fascinating bit of history. Also, Indonesia is like a massive party spot for Australians to go on holiday. So we know a thing or two about it. I thought the implication was the worker ate the food and then infected them, grains or something, the doctor said. The perfect substrate. Yeah, I did see that word, and I'm sure that word means something, but I didn't look it up. But anyway, I don't really care about the mechanics of this shit. The scene was cool, though. I guess the only other really big thing to talk about is Tess. Or we could talk about how I thought the clickers were scarier in the game, because me and Miller already kind of had an argument about this. And me and Miller almost had an argument about this. The setup of the scene and the Druckmannization is all the little details, right? Because the overall points, especially in everything in Druckmann games, is not always original. Remember what every shitty YouTube video you ever watched about The Last of Us Part 1, they'd all say, it's a simple story told beautifully. That's how they would say it, because it's about getting a person from point A to point B or whatever the fuck. It's little things. But I do think it is a Druckmannization of like you introduce, because first it's like in sections. We're talking about the first scene, by the way, the Indonesia stuff. Because initially you are introduced to be fearful of the officers, just how everybody reacts to them when they walk into the restaurant. Nobody really wants them there. And then you're immediately sympathize with the woman because she's then taken into custody. And you're like, well, Indonesia, this is not a white person country, so I'm assuming through my racism that the police are corrupt or something. Unlike in white countries, as you understand. Not even white countries, in English-speaking countries. Because I don't know, if we're going to Romania or some shit, I don't know, that's some crazy shit. So then initially you're like, oh no, what are they going to do to this woman? This is not good. And then the woman goes into the thing, and obviously now we're clued in through sort of dramatic context that she's going to have something to do with the virus. Why else would we watch? Why else would we be being shown this scene? And like the sort of subversive twist at the end is that she ends up like being the scariest one in the scene when she advocates for everybody to get bombed. And there's something about that structure and sort of the build up for the subversion is very Druckmann-esque to me. I wish I could think of another example, and I'm sure I could if I wasn't streaming. But he does that a lot where he sort of switches, because the scary officer man at the very end of the scene is like entirely the sympathetic one, as he's sort of, and the vulnerable one, I guess, not even sympathetic, but sort of the vulnerable, scared one. And it's the crazy switch up there. And again, obviously, everything does subversions, everything does the switch up. But something in the little details that gets you there, that feels Druckmannized to me. I'm sure whatever Miller is saying in chat will not make me angry. The scene, hold on, did I miss this one? Grains? Yes, I read that one. The scene there is to establish how impossible it seems to be to find a cure. That is interesting, where she was immediately like, well, we can't find a cure, Lamau. Oh, are we giving more context to make it seem like they weren't going to make a cure? Because that could be what we're doing, because obviously then it seems like kind of unrealistic that a bunch of random Firefly doctors in the post-apocalypse who don't get to research things all day and be professional fucking scientists just somehow can figure out a cure. I was thinking that while watching it initially, but we could be setting up that there's no way the Fireflies actually were going to make a cure, like the Joseph Anderson video argues, which is absolutely in part 2 not the implication at all. And if part 3 ever exists, everybody thinks that it's going to be about Ellie killing herself or sacrificing herself to make the cure. So that would undermine all that. But it's interesting. And the Doctor has the same mindset as Joel. Does she? How? Because she wants to bomb everybody, or because, I guess because Joel in this episode, I guess we're talking about, not overall, doesn't think a cure is possible. I guess it highlights the theme of hope then, where you're supposed to be hopeful in the face of evidence, or have faith sort of that everything will work out by believing in Ellie or whatever, despite Joel and what the expert in the field has already said in the episode. I guess that's interesting. It's not a virus, Kyle. Shake my head. What does that have to do with anything? What was Ari talking about? Virus. It's not a virus that passes because you gotta get bitten, I guess. I don't know what a virus is, or definitionally. Anyway, let's move out of this first scene. The first shot in the normies also had this reaction, so it has to be true and the objective reading of the scene. I initially was like over the moon because we get this great first scene and then we get this opening shot on Ellie and I'm like, oh my god, we're doing dream sequences too? This is the greatest television show of all time. Because part 2 started to do dream sequences towards the end, and I had the same reaction then. I'm like, oh yes, we're in Mad Men Sopranos territory. We're doing crazy fucking weird in this hyper-realistic setting dream sequences. I'm in. And part 2's dream sequences are rather subdued. Abby has bad dreams of people dying before she does good thing. After she does good thing, her dreams are happy. And does Ellie ever have a dream? I guess she has like PTSD flashbacks. But that's what I thought we were doing on this initial establishing shot after the opening credits meme on Ellie. But it turns out she was just lying in this picturesque painting-like posing thing. Which is fine, I guess. But immediately I was like, oh, dream sequence. This is fucking awesome. I did the thing where I clicked on the screen. Now the scrolling thing is never going to disappear. But there's even like a moth. There's a moth! Get it? Because Ellie's the moth? And Abby is the firefly. Remember that? Remember that video I never actually made? We'll make it at some point. But it like flies over all picturesque, like it's Alice in Wonderland or something, and we're dreaming. Turned out it wasn't a dream. But no, then we start with the interactions, and they're all great, and I love them all. They got the sassiness down packed. I feel like we already talked about Ellie. Ellie's a moth. Yeah, there's a moth on her guitar. Moths are ugly and evil, whereas fireflies light the way and move on, because Abby moves on at the end of the game, and Ellie's an evil, no good moth. I have a whole fucking draft written up on it, Ari. I'll send it to you later. Remember the title of that video? What is it? I can't remember. Is it just The Moth and the Firefly? Abby and Ellie character analysis. We got to remove the A word. We don't like that word anymore. Someday I'll make videos about The Last of Us. Ari skipped the part of the playthrough when she transforms into a moth. True. I guess the other big thing I want to talk about, because we don't make these that long, and how long have we been streaming for? 30 minutes, so we've probably been recording for 20 minutes. We don't have to drag things out if we don't want to. Like, I feel like most of the stuff I like in this episode would just be going through, like, gags and being like, well, that was funny when she had chicken and they didn't. It's Tess. Don't worry, I remember, chat. Tess, I don't know, I don't even know how to describe the differences. Tess is kind of whiny and wimpy in the show. Whereas Tess is like super strong and cool in the game. And I feel like it's a big difference. Help me out, Chad. There was one line, there are a few lines from the game directly in the episode. And I still think whenever they do them, it's bad and does make me cringe. But there was one that was really good. What was it, chat? I wonder if you guys thought the same thing. I'm not quizzing you, like, I wonder if chat's going to say the same thing. Because I actually forgot. I think it was Ellie saying, fuck you, I didn't ask for this. And I was like, oh, that's a line from the game. It's funny how many lines of this fucking game I remember. But, like, I just think the Tess voice actress is so good. I feel like when she says, this is fucking real, Joel, it's so good. And they did that line in the show too, but it just wasn't as good. God, that Tess scene is so good at the end, and I guess the show version wasn't. The drama with, like, the infected running in and her not being able to light the light was great. I liked that. Because the scenes are very different, as most things are, like, fundamentally kind of, in all the little ways, very different in the show, which is obviously going to be the case when you have different actors and different voices doing usually different lines. There was a moment at the end where I thought, she's not going to light it, she's going to get, like, ripped apart. And that would have, like, been the cat piece in sort of my, I guess, criticism of Tessa's character of, like, it would have, obviously that would make you look weak. If you're getting ripped apart and screaming for the things, but instead she did light it and did explode. Obviously that's another change too. It's not infected, but Fedra that actually does get them. Get the fireflies rather in that part of the game, and then you have to, like, run down the I guess it's like a subway, because they have, like, an armored car and everything. But that, like, transitions right into it. That's not, like, a good end piece for an episode. Because there are other things that are different because they change it too. Because Ellie immediately afterwards is like, in the game, she's like, we're not going to leave her like that. Like, we're not really going to leave her like that. And Joel, like, says, stop talking or something. It's clearly he's going through it, but she's like, even though she's being a little distant, she actually has learned to care about Tess. Now, they did substitute that in the episode for, like, Bella Ramsey, like, actually pretty viscerally screaming after Joel grabs her to take her away, which I thought was a good substitute. It does make her seem, I guess, stupider than game Ellie, and I feel like that might be a consistent thing too. Like, she even gets bitten a second time, which I don't think happens in the game at all. But yeah, there's sort of like a, I wish I was good at descriptors on the spot, because there is something very different between how how the characterization comes off between Ellie and Ellie, between Bella Ramsey and Ashley Johnson's Ellies, like in this moment. There is sort of, I guess, a solemnness to Game Ellie where she's sort of like, just the way she says that line of like, we're not really going to leave her like that, are we? Because there's sort of a hurt and a regret, but it's also like calm, whereas the scream, they both accomplish the same goal of being like, Ellie cares about Tess, has learnt to care about Tess, and obviously that makes us like Ellie more. But it's done in very different ways. And I think in ways that are consistent to each of their individual characters. They just come off very differently. Ellie gets bitten again at the end of the second game, right? That is true. When she's in the trap thing, and then she gets stabbed in the side, and then she pushes the one of the slavers in, and the other buff one she shoots. I remember. Was it in Uncharted 4 when the joke is somebody can't light a lighter? I forget, I swear there was a gag in something. There definitely is. It's definitely in a bunch of things. I feel like I've seen it multiple times. In funny and dramatic ways. It might be in Uncharted where it's in a funny way, but I've definitely seen dramatic things where it's like somebody's left alone to make something explode, but they can't get the light to work. What have I seen with self-sacrifice in it? I'm not going to be able to think of it on the spot. Comparison is the thief of joy, Kyle Entertainment. Well, I can't help it. This is real. I predicted that was coming. What did you predict about it? Tess is the same as the game except for the part at the end where she likes Joel, right? Well, obviously. I just spent 20 minutes on how they're completely different. But I don't know what you mean by the part at the end when she says she likes Joel. In the game or in the episode? I already skipped the part. I read that one. In the podcast, the guy said Ellie got a bit so being immune. Blah, blah, blah. The podcast, because I did watch the podcast last week, but I obviously haven't watched it this week yet, or the inside the episode. I do like the podcast way better because it's less dramatized. In the podcast, the guy said Ellie got bit, so her being immune was more real for Joel and the viewer because her being immune from spores was cut, I guess. There is a moment in the game, for Joel at least, when they first encounter spores when they're alone, I think. I think it is after you go into the railway I was just talking about underneath. Right after the test moment. God, this is fucking real in the game is so good. What a line delivery. Test in the game, much better. What were we talking about? Oh, there is a thing where she says, I wasn't lying to you guys. Because she sort of gets annoyed when Joel tells her to put a mask on. But yeah. So yeah, that is a neat substitute. Because there is a moment there for Joel where he has like, it sort of does become real to him. In the show, Tess says you don't have to feel the same way as me. That means she likes him more than the other way around, right? I guess I don't remember the line enough or the delivery of the line enough to have an interpretation here. It is interesting because I think I imagined to myself like what Joel would say because he has that moment where he says like pass, because I'm American. Or he says pass on the questions Ellie's asking. And one of them is about him and Tess. Now, obviously they made it more obvious that they are sleeping together in the show than in the game. Because in the game it's kind of always vague. I like the relationship way better in the game too. But I think this all just comes from liking Tess better. I really like Tess in the game. I'm figuring this out now. Because I'm like, every scene with her is like fucking great. That is a dumb fucking idea. Shoots him in the head. Show Tess wouldn't do anything like that. She'd cry. No, she's not that bad. But yeah. How good. What matters is that Robert fucking sent them. So good. Miller's right. Thanks, Ari. Look at these fucking idiots ganging up on me. Oh, but my imagination. I was getting to that. I was imagining, like, would she ask if they got married, and Joel would say something like, oh, you can't exactly get married in a QZ or something. I don't know why I thought that. I was writing lines in my head as I was watching it. But it would be interesting if, like, if she likes him more, I guess. It could play into, like, oh, he's still got such a broken heart over Sarah that he never loved again. But that's a little weird. I feel like in 20 years, daughter schmorter, make another one. You're over it. Probably not. I don't know. I never had a daughter that died. I guess that kind of sums up what I wanted to say about Tess, huh? It different. Oh no, my mouse isn't moving. Let me scroll through here. Oh, Clicker's being scarier. Miller was saying in the Discord he was being an idiot again. Imagine that. He was saying that the Clicker scene was like disappointing or something because it wasn't as scary in the game. Or even, and then we sort of talked about tension. I think the way the Clicker is handled in like the scene is better than it's ever handled in the game. Now, I don't know if I mean better. I think it's more tense and it's scarier. But I don't really care about either of those aspects in the game. Now, obviously, there are scarier moments than this in the game, but it's the Abby stuff in the hospital. That should be scary. I guess it's bloaters that are scary in the first game, because I do remember the one section where you get the key card and you're I don't even think you're underground, but it's just all dark, and there's like water everywhere, and once you click the, what do you call those things? Where you rev the reverie. Not that. We ain't at the reverie yet. Don't spoil Miller on One Piece. I don't know, just the power thing, where you have to press fucking triangle a bunch of times. You actually don't press it a bunch of times. That's a way to fuck it up. You press it once, and then once again when it gets into the little sector. But yeah, you pull that thing, and then you hear the noises, and then they start coming at you in waves. That's a scary moment in the first game. And then I think there's also a scary moment in the first game when you're at the college. But it's never just clickers by themselves, and it's certainly not this first clicker encounter. That shit's easy as fuck. But in the show, it was spooky and stuff. In the show, it's kind of like he lets the clip go 3 times. I guess the clip is the whole thing. I was trying to sound cool like a rapper chat. He shoots the thing 3 times with his fucking AR whatever. It's probably not an AR-15, but that's whatever a machine gun is to me. I don't know nothing about guns. Joel shoots the thing 3 times in like the body, and it doesn't phase it at all. And then he like gets in the head, they axe it in the head, it's still fucking surviving. This thing's deadly as fuck. I thought that was all cool stuff. And it was a cool little extended sequence. It was an action sequence, and I didn't think it was boring and lame. Obviously, when the camera comes in for a close-up on Joel, it's almost like a cheap like camera movement where you're like, oh, well, next time the camera like pans out, it's going to be right next to him. And I feel like we're talking about layers again. It had to be a 3rd layer thing where they know it's cheap, but it's sort of fucking with you knowing how cheap it is. And oh, it was so good, because the normies also had that reaction where it was like, no, I think Chris said, no camera, don't do this to me, when it goes in for the close-up on Joel as he's reloading, and you're like, well, you know where this is going. It sort of added a meta scariness to it. I liked it. Anything else from that sequence? I remember Ellie saying, shit my pants, the way she said it was good. I think a lot of the good stuff with Ellie, especially in the first game, well, exclusively in the first game because we're talking about kids here, is the genuineness with it, and how it sort of gets how kids are sarcastic, and I think it's so good, and the way they say things. We also had to talk about this in the Discord, and I think Bacon was re-listening to mine and Bacon's, which is in the same playlist this video was in, when we talked about the first game, when Bacon played it for the first time, and I talked about how, as a kid, because I was like 14, or maybe 15 when I played The Last of Us for the first time, and I remember thinking Ellie was the most relatable character I'd ever seen, because she was a kid like me, accurately portrayed in a video game. And I always remember my negative example of this was Tom Holland as Spider-Man. I'm like, this is so clearly what like a cringy millennial thinks a Zoomer is like, and I hated it. I've softened on Tom Holland as Spider-Man since then. But the over-enunciating, the overacting, the hyper-self-awareness, everything about Tom Holland I hated. And Ellie was so grounded and like, yes, this is actually how it is. I remember appreciating that so much as a kid. And it still is true now, where it's like, man, does this portrayal feel genuine and interesting? And is she cunty in all the ways a kid is? And like immature in all the ways a kid are? You know what I'm trying to say. The shit my pants line was kind of the biggest exemplar of that, I think, in this episode, of that feeling. And I thought it was good. That was my point there. Those were stalkers, not clickers. Oh, I can't remember the fucking difference between these fucking idiots. Stalkers follow you, and they're only in like one level in the first game, but they're in a bunch more in the second game. But these were definitely clickers, right? But they might have been stalkers in the one of the levels I was talking about previously. Is probably what Miller is saying. But yeah, I guess I was just talking about zombies in general. I wasn't specifically talking about clickers, though we were. That's kind of what I was thinking about. I have to do things in a video game to survive zombies in a show. I know everybody's going to survive, so I just wait for the scene to be over. Yeah, action's bad. Nothing the show can fix that, though. No, I think you're right. They're clickers. Well, I don't know which part we were talking about, but I was right, and that's all that matters. I'm scrolling through on my wheel here to see if I can find a scene. The view scene also I don't think was as effective as it is in the game. Just do your own thing. Ignore the video game, alright? We'll do the plot beats. We're gonna meet Bill next episode, alright? Outside of that, no more lines. But sometimes, like the one line they did get, I was like, oh, this is the greatest thing to ever live. So just do the lines good, is my and the moments good. Like even Pedro Pascal's Joel looking at the watch, I was like, this isn't as cool as the game Joel. But also they fucked with the events a little bit here because Tess is already bitten at this point and she knows it. Actually, she might already be bitten here. Because there's two encounters, right? There's the one in the big... Oh, I guess they never went into the big building, huh? I think that happens before the museum. Or is the museum on a floor in the building in the game? Something like that. It might be the museum where she also gets bit, and I think it might be in the game. But it was... I realized that, they're treating it like she got bit here immediately. But I was like, I was sort of off guard as it was happening. I was like, this is the first encounter, and it's the second encounter, obviously, where she gets bit. But it was all made one encounter here. Which is kind of interesting, I guess. And also, having the goal in the distance does work better in the game because it takes, like, way longer than just, like, an episode to do the whole journey. I don't know. Something about it being, like, 2 or 3 areas in a game feels longer than an episode. Or feels like more of a journey to get somewhere. But no, everything's good. There's also the truck. It's empty or whatever. Tess blows up Lamau. Also, as soon as they get the water, I'm like, here we're gonna get the swimming line. They hit on it. It was good, I think. So we have the swimming subplot. It's not really a subplot. But I think that might be it, unless you've got anything to tell me, chat. That might be everything we have to say about Last of Us Episode 2. I'm going to be so hyped when they do a plank or swimming puzzle moment. They set that up with Ellie not being able to swim. It's coming. Look, I didn't even see Miller's comment, but that's what we were talking about. But I think that would be cool if they did one of the plank puzzles. I like the plank puzzles. Definitely more than the swimming ones. I like swimming in the game, though. It's fun. It's probably better in the second game, but what isn't? I'm glad I didn't play this game so I can get to enjoy it all. Yes. Alita already has that superpower, I guess. But I think that's it, everybody. I'm proud of my performance in this one. I thought all my ideas came to my head. Enjoy the lesser version. I feel like it's different enough. Like it only feels like the lesser version when they do those direct things. I really do think it's basically doing it's not doing its own thing. It feels different because it's got the same characters. Most of the characters are going to meet the same end. We're going through the same plot points. But just as long as the little bits are all different, which they all really have been so far, it feels like a completely different experience to me. So I like it. Don't bring up Chainsaw Man. It's exactly the opposite of Chainsaw Man, where it feels like all the little bits are trying to be what the manga is, but failing. Whereas it doesn't feel like that. It feels like maybe the bigger bits in this one are trying to do that, but not every little minutia. Anyway, ignore him, YouTube. No, Chainsaw Man anime, it's like a 6 out of 10. Episode 2 and 3 were really bad. After the plot picks up, you kind of don't have time to be annoyed at how unfunny it is. Anyway, that's it. I'm trying to end this fucking video, Elite RE. How about you let me? Yeah, the flashbacks really could really distinguish it. I'm not even talking about that stuff. Anyway, we'll be back next week, assuming there is an episode next week. We'll probably be a day late again. Well, it depends when I work. I had to work today and yesterday, and I'm working late, and that's into my in denial RE. You get him, Heath. God, Heath is always right about everything. Okay, chat. But yeah, so it depends on. I had to work both, and I work nights, kind of, afternoon into the nights, and it eats into my recording time. And I don't get to end it. Also, my shifts usually start right as the episode's airing. Whatever, it's a complicated affair if I have to work on the days it airs. So next week I might not be. So I might be able to record it the night of. And we'll stream it, because we are streaming right now. Obviously, I'm interacting with chat. They have to be here live. You understand, YouTube. It might be different next week. We'll be back next week, nonetheless. Support links in the description below. Thanks.